Here's how you can make your YouTube videos more interesting even if you aren't an expert and even if you don't know what to talk about. All without having to make hundreds of videos to get there. This video contains an edited call from my private group, which you can find out more about down below. In it, we talked about what to do if you don't know what to talk about on YouTube or anywhere you're creating content and how you can be seen as an expert. Nikki in the group had a great question, and I think it's a very common question that a lot of people have, which is the structure of a video and how do you fill 20 minutes? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we get started, I want to remind everyone that I don't think your goal should necessarily be a certain amount of time. I always make the joke that in school, I would always be the kid where the teacher would say, you have this writing assignment, you have to write an essay. I would ask, how long does it need to be? And the teacher would be like, as long as it needs to be. And I would hand in a 2-sentence paper because they didn't give a certain length. And I would always get in trouble for that. Although I would say, you didn't say that it had to be a certain length. But we're not in school anymore, so you don't have to write 20 minutes necessarily. It doesn't have to even be 5 minutes. I think what everybody needs to remember is that when you're creating a video, that it needs to be as long as it needs to be. So that is pretty much what I like to focus on is, are you creating a quality experience for the people that are watching your content? Pretty much every single platform has come out. They have all said they don't care about length. What they care about is the experience that the person is having who's watching the video. So they really focus on quality. What I would do is I always like to remind people to focus on the quality of the video first, and also making sure that you're getting people from point A to point B. So we want to create a straight line transformation from A to B. And so we want to create this straight line where people have some sort of transformation with our video. Now, I'm going to give you all a quick example. A couple weeks ago, we were looking at keto pizza, and we use this as an example. This video right here is only 5 minutes long and has 1.9 million views. This one is 10 minutes long and it has 500,000 views. As you can see, this is a shorter video, but it is doing better than this guy right here. Now, I would be willing to bet that if you come back and you watch this guy's video maybe like a year or two, this might end up getting more views because it actually is a better video than this one right here. I think even this one right here has too much going on. It's still a little bit too much filler content. There's too much fluff going on in the video. He talks too much. He doesn't get straight into the point. But before this video came out, I would say this was probably the best video on making a keto pizza because it's 5 minutes long. It's pretty short. If we look at someone like the Keto Twins, they have one with 68,000 views. Theirs is 13 minutes long, but again, they probably do a lot of talking. We're going to get into the structure in a minute. And also, Nikki asked, what if I'm not an expert? I think a lot of people worry way too much about this word right here, that they feel like they have to know what they're talking about in their videos, but they actually don't. So if we have a 13-minute video, a 5-minute video, I think most people on YouTube think that they need to go 13 minutes, but here's the thing, is that someone might only watch about 50% of this right here. So someone might only watch 50% of this video that's 13 minutes long. Normally what happens if you don't have a good video, then someone only watches 50% of this one because the average on YouTube that you can expect is about 50% of watch time on a video. This video right here in this scenario would actually win because 50% of 13 minutes is over 6 minutes. 50% of 5 minutes is 2 minutes, 30 seconds, right? So this video technically is getting more watch time than this one. Where things change is when someone watches like 70% of this video here, right? So I have a feeling that people probably watch like 70% of this video, but maybe they only watch 50% of this one. That's why his video is ranked higher than this one right here, even though they're basically doing exactly the same thing. Again, the whole point of my rant here is that length doesn't matter. It does to a certain extent. If you can only get 50% watch time, then yeah, you would definitely want to create like a 14-minute video if you are the competitor, because that extra minute might make all the difference in the world. And your 50% is now worth more than this 50%, so it might be worth it to try and beat it. Now, again, I would not just try to fill time. Nikki's question was like, how do I fill 20 minutes? How am I going to talk for 20 minutes? And then my response to that is, well, you shouldn't necessarily talk for 20 minutes if you can't fill it with good information, right? If you can't get them to watch the whole entire video. And this number really doesn't matter all that much because, we could go into bucket theory. And so if we have a keto bucket right here, so let's say most people who watch keto videos are in this bucket. If the average for them is like 80%, they watch like this much of the video, YouTube is going to test that video to the cooking bucket. It's going to test it to the pizza bucket. And so these people might only watch 30%. This one might only watch 10%. You can have a video that's 5 minutes long that has 50%. But if we have a keto bucket here and their keto bucket only watches 60%, even if they have the same percentage, then your video, even if it's only 5 minutes long, still might win as far as the keto bucket is concerned because it has 80% instead of 60%. So again, I think this rabbit hole on buckets and stuff goes deep, and there's definitely a lot of testing that needs to be done for this sort of thing. So just keep in mind that you basically you want to create an experience for the people where they get what they came for, right? If you can just deliver it, that transformation, people coming to these videos, they just want to know, how do I cook a keto pizza? They don't want to know about your cat. They don't care about any stories that you have to tell. Sorry to say it, but they don't care about that. They just want the result, right? So if you can stay results focused, then length isn't going to matter as much. It still matters, but probably not as much. That's what I'll say about length. Now, how do we fill a story? Nikki, do you want to give us an example of something that you might talk about, or do you have any ideas that you want us to maybe work with here that we could use as an example for a video? I'm interested in content for over 50 couples looking for what's next in their lives. What I would do with Nikki is we are going to go over 50 couples. So let's see. What men really want in a relationship after 50? He would maybe like retirement be a better topic, or have you done any research on like specific ideas? Let's do this. Let's type in retired couples. Oh, okay. This gives me an idea right here, like the whole living on a cruise ship thing. Do you have any like specific topics that you're thinking of that have to do with it? Retired yearly with 500K. So retirement is definitely a topic that could come up. Traveling. I love the idea of traveling because there are a lot of like expat travel couples. I bet I can find one right now, one that I'm thinking of. It's none of these. I think this is a great one, like returning in another country. And let's do Mexico. Why not? And let's see what comes up. Yeah, so we find a lot of good content here. There's a couple that I'm looking for that I used to watch. I actually have no desire to move to Mexico, but I used to. Here they are, right here. Okay. So actually, this is the lady I'm talking about, but I thought she had a channel that I'm looking for. But I used to watch them because they were hilarious, but I wish I could find their channel, but that's okay. So we have plenty. Oh, this is good stuff. Is it this guy? It might be this guy. Let's see. No, it's not him. Again, there's tons of good ideas. We're going to run with this here. What Nikki asked me in her question was like, again, how do I fill 50 or 20 minutes if I'm not an expert? Let's go to his most popular and let's see if we can find a good topic. So let's see. DNA test, top 10 tips for moving to Mexico. Let's do this right here. So we're going to try to get him to be quiet, and we're going to take this. So we'll move it over here. Top 10 tips for moving to Mexico. Following all the dent makers rules. We're going to search it again. Top 10 tips for moving to Mexico. Let's see what else comes up. His video shows up at the top, probably because I just looked at it, but pretty good. 5 things I wish I knew before I was moving to Mexico. 190K views, really good. This one, not so many views. 10 mistakes. Mistakes might be a better word based off of our research already. It is proven that going negative is always better than focusing on the positive on YouTube, but I guess it is what it is. The dent makers rules are basically that there aren't any real rules, but just the rule is we come up with an idea that is winning. So like in our example, we picked this video right here, which is winning. It's the most viewed, one of the most viewed videos on his channel. It has a good amount of views. And then what we do is we search the same topic in YouTube, and we also look to make sure that it's actually a good idea. So we have a little bit of proof right here because this one is very similar, has 190K views. This one has 173,000 views. And so it's also similar. And what we're doing is we're just looking at it and saying, okay, for the most part, this idea works. If I haven't actually done it, isn't it unethical to just repurpose someone else's experience? Yes, and that's not what I would suggest you do in the first place. That's what I'm helping you do right now. So I'm going to help you see how to come up with this and how to put the information together so that you can talk about it. So that's what we're doing. We found some good examples here. We also have videos like Peter talking about why people move to Mexico City. So I would actually, to answer Nikki's question, take this as research, right? So I would take this and that would be that. Let me close this. There's a couple of directions that you could go in that I think would be very easy, low-hanging fruit. The first one would be interviews. You could easily interview any of these people on these channels, and they'd probably be happy to come on. You could literally do the same videos that they have, do like top 10 tips for interviewing. Like a really easy way to do this would be to bring up podcasts the same way. And I'm not saying you even have to do a podcast. You could just interview them, but then you could do a video with the top 10. But what I would do is find 5 to 10 people. I would interview them on their top 10 tips for moving to Mexico. So then what happens is if you have, let's say you have 5 people that are all telling you this, you have 10 tips from all these people. Let's visualize this real quick. Let's say these are 5 different people and you have them sharing their 10 tips. So what you have here is 5 interviews with the top 10 tips. Then what I would do is I would create a super video where you basically take the top 10. So what you can do is you can take all the interviews you just did and you can turn them into a top 10 of the top 10. I'm a big fan of creating as little work as possible. And so this right here becomes a bonus, this video here, because you're taking the top 10 of the top 10 tips from these people. This is a great way. We talk about what to do if I'm not an expert, and I always say that you have to have an experience. But if you can't go and have an experience on your own, then this is what I would do. I would go learn from other people and just share their experience by interviewing them or something like that. So going back to what you have said previously, tips someone famous told, that's exactly what I would do here. Is I would take this and you could turn this into a year's worth of content easily. Like literally 5 people could probably give you a year's worth of content because they're all going to say something different. And then 10 times each, you can then go in and you can create another video where you say something like, this person taught me about food in Mexico. You could have a whole entire pillar that's dedicated to their food tip. And I'm sure if we go to YouTube and we search food in Mexico, I'm sure we're going to find plenty of stuff that has great views, right? So if we go through here, Anthony Bourdain obviously is going to be famous, but that could be a reaction video that you do in the future. But you could say, let's try this on a budget in Mexico. Let's see if anything comes up. Here you go. Can I spend $100 in street food in Mexico? Let's find another one. San Miguel, whatever, a food tour in Mexico. These are all things that you could think about for your video. What I would do is I like to think 20 steps ahead. So if I were to do something like this, I would be thinking like, okay, every single guest I have on, maybe I don't need to get 10 tips, but maybe I could get 2 or 3 tips from each person. And since I'm going to have a bunch of people on, then I'll have plenty of material to create this video here with the top 10 tips. But also, maybe I need to ask every single guest about their favorite street food. Maybe I need to ask them about like dangers, right? Maybe I need to ask them about medical care. So I would just start doing research on like Mexico, for example. I would come up with a list of like the most common things that people are looking for and searching for here on YouTube. And then I would just reverse engineer every single interview to ask questions that could potentially go into a video about this. So, like, you're creating separate videos just by doing the interview. The beautiful thing about this is you don't even have to repurpose the interview necessarily. You could say, I've interviewed 20 people over the past 2 months about moving to Mexico, and this is what they've all said about the best street food in Mexico, right? Then you just go into it. You just say, this person said that their favorite place is this place. This person said their favorite place was here in Oaxaca. They love this restaurant that's Michelin star rated. So you're just building a story. And and by the way, Nikki, and everybody else that's here, you won't have a problem filling 20 minutes if you do videos this way. And especially if you're doing interviews. Now, you don't have to do interviews. This is just an easy way to do it. So does that make sense to everyone? Making the work easier for yourself. This is why we do the research, so that we don't have to guess what is going to work in the future. We already have a bunch of stuff lined up that's going to help us create these future pieces of content as well. If you want to get calls just like this every single week, and if you want to join the beta of my bundle that I'm creating, which is a collection of over 27 courses all about content creation, everything I've learned over 10 years on YouTube on my main channel. This is not my main channel right here. Then you can learn more about that down below. Again, we have special beta pricing. If you're watching this in the future, it's probably not beta pricing, so I apologize if it's not. But yeah, that's how I would set it up. If you don't want to do the interviews, then I would literally just research and document the process of researching. So like I say, for everyone else who isn't involved in travel or whatever, to fill time, what we want to do is just document the process of learning. Again, Nikki used the word expert, but no one is an expert. No one knows anything, really. I don't even know anything. I think we're all in this process of learning, and we just have to document our process of learning something. This is another good example, but I tried Andrew Huberman's daily routine, right? She is just having an experience with Andrew Huberman's daily routine, and so are about 20 other people. You can see all these people, 1.5 million views, 2 million views. All they're doing is having an experience, and they're sharing their experience. And so that's all you have to do. If you are selling a product or service that runs out or runs every 3 months, what would be your marketing strategy be? How much time do you recommend to start marketing for new signups and sales? Do you focus on one thing or create multiple things with social media? There's a lot that goes into that, Janet, but I'm a big fan of definitely building up the hype before you do your launch, and then launching it after you build up the hype, at least for a week. I find that I wouldn't go longer than a week. Jeff Walker has a product launch formula, and I took the very first product launch formula course that came out many years ago now. I think he even recommends 7 days max, because you're not going to get, after 7 days, people forget, they change their mind, and all that other stuff. I'm a big fan of doing the 3-video launch thing, where you basically do 3 different videos spread out during the week, and you create, you give away little tips on each one of the video about the launch. You get people really excited about the launch, and then obviously you hit the launch, right? And that's what I would do. I'm a big fan of bonuses as well. I come from the marketing world, and I dominated a launch once. It wasn't for me, it was for a person that I was an affiliate for. But basically what I did is I did this. It was a product on mobile websites. What I did is I did a 3-day video sequence that I put out over a week, so they all got a bonus. All I did is I shared how I would use the product. So that's what I did over these 3 days. Then what I also did is I created a separate course that was a bonus that they all got if they signed up under my link. So that absolutely crushed it for me. I was like the #1 affiliate for that product at that time. This is exactly how I did it. So it works for everything. But I'm a big fan. It's a lot of work. I would give yourself like a good amount of time to set it all up. And then I would do 7 days. And that's it. I would do 7 days, and then I would probably give people like 3 days to sign up, and then close it for 30 days. I'm a big fan of closing things down for 90 days, launching every single quarter, and not letting people in. Like, no one is allowed into dent makers right now for a good reason. Yeah, just build anticipation and hype and all that other stuff. Any thoughts on differentiating yourself in super saturated market like yoga, or maybe they're all saturated at this point? Yes, I think that is a great question. How can you make yourself stand out? I think the answer is very simple. I do recommend Influence. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Influence. This is a great way to differentiate yourself right here. This girl is the girl I was talking about. She did this video where she said, I made Andrew Huberman's routine work for an average person myself. So everybody at the time that she launched this video was creating the same exact video. They were all doing Andrew Huberman's routine. She made herself different and differentiated herself by saying for an average person. So in the yoga niche, for example, I think our girlfriend, Yoga with Adrian, right? She dominates yoga on YouTube. And we've used her as an example many times. So what I would be doing is, number one, we have to back up for a second, right? So we have yoga, and yoga, like this might as well be in its own, might as well be in a big bucket here on YouTube. There's a lot that goes in here. I would say that there's actually probably a lot of little buckets using bucket theory. So we have a bunch of these little buckets in here. So what the little buckets would look like is, we're going to use Yoga with Adrian as our example, just because she actually has a bunch of buckets like already come. I was literally going to say, I can't believe this, because I was literally going to say you might have to dress up to stand out. And she literally has this video right here dressed as a lizard, which is cracking me up right now. So here you go. Here's one way that you could stand out, is by dressing up. But if we go to her channel and we go to her top videos, what I would say is that number yoga is a bucket. So 30 days, 20 minutes, 11 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. This, like, the having a number, as crazy as that sounds, in front of yoga is probably a bucket. You could probably actually say that 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 11 minutes, like having minute yoga is a bucket. Then you could also say that days is a yoga bucket. So that's one bucket. Another bucket would be this right here, yoga for a specific thing. So we have neck pain, back pain, we have flexibility, we have anxiety even could be included in that, back pain. So Yoga with Adrian would be a great person for you to study if you are wanting to start a yoga channel. Now, to make this different, what we have to do is we have to mix two ideas together to be able to stand out. So if we go back actually real quick to our keto pizza brother, this guy here is definitely a dent maker, even though he's not in dent makers, but he understands the dent maker process without understanding it. So what he does is he goes to AI, he goes to ChatGPT, and he has ChatGPT come up with a keto recipe for these foods. He is taking two different ideas, keto and AI, and he's mixing them together. So he is making something unique or different, or he's making this stand out. Keto is a pretty competitive niche, but his channel is blowing up. We looked at him the other day. The reason we know that he is blowing up is because when we go to most popular, we see a lot of very recent videos right here, 3 months, 4 months, 3 months right here. We see a lot of recent videos. These are all recent. If we go to his oldest videos, he's had a channel for 2 years, and he wasn't doing AI. He was just searching Google to create these videos. But ever since he switched to AI, these videos are like blowing up on his channel. So he's mixing two ideas together. So if I wanted to stand out in the yoga niche, I would start searching yoga. I would say, okay, Adrian clearly stands out the most in yoga. And yoga is a pretty straightforward niche. And so what I would do is I would set it up this way. The way my channel would look is about, I would say maybe 80% of my content, or yeah, 80% of my content would be exactly what Adrian does, right? I would do 10-minute, 15, 20, and 30-minute yoga videos. So that would be like one of my pillars. Another pillar would be for a specific problem. And there are a couple of ways that you can win with a specific problem. If we look at this lower back thing, it says 30 minutes. You know how I would beat this right here? It says yoga for lower back pain. Let's make it this. What I would do is, her video is 30 minutes. So I would do something like completely fix back pain in minutes. The reason I would go shorter is because this is a problem that someone wants to solve right now. If they see your video, which says fix your back pain in 30 minutes, and they see your video, which says fix your back pain in 30 minutes, who do you think they're going to click on? Probably the shorter video because they want a solution to their problem right now. So the more I think about this, this is probably what I would double down on, is specific problems that you can solve quickly, because people want their problem solved yesterday. They don't want to wait any longer. So you could actually get away with a shorter video here because they want to solve the problem quickly. And that's exactly what I would do. I would create a whole entire thing. Now, the other thing I would do is 20% of my videos, I would start trying crazy stuff, right? I would start coming up with more unique ideas. I would start adding a twist. I would start messing around with the time. For sure, that would be one of them. I would make shorter. I would make longer. I would make different. The other thing I would do, I would start looking around, and I would actually come up to the filters up top here, and I would look for view count, and then I would go to this year, and I would see what is trending this year for yoga. Of course, this kind of thing is we can't get away from it, people, right? Of course, those videos are gonna do well. Obviously, if you're putting your cheeks in a video, you can get 15 million, 9 million, 20 million. Let's put it this way. Let's keep it G-rated. If you can show how flexible you are, you're going to get 7.5 million views apparently. But let's look for something that we actually want. So we want an actual video. We don't necessarily want a sultry short like this right here. Oh my God. How do they get away with this on YouTube? Here is a newer video with Tarot by Adrian, right? And it says morning mobility yoga, wake up and stretch. Why did this video take off? I have no clue. So this would be something that I would start targeting. I would start looking for newer videos that are taking off. What we're looking for is outlier content. If you don't know what that is, I'll explain it. But we're looking for recent outlier content. So I like to go to the channel. I'll look at what the average views are. But like we could say that her average is maybe around 500,000. So anything that's above 500,000, like this one right here, which is exactly what we just found with morning mobility yoga, this is going to be a piece of outlier content. You could even break this down farther, and you could say that maybe like 10% of the time you're experimenting with a crazy idea, like dressing up like a lizard, like she did, and then maybe another 10% here. So maybe 1 or 2 videos per month. What I would do is I would duplicate outlier content. I would create a morning mobility yoga. Now, of course, we don't want to copy her at all. That's not what we're doing. But I would create your own version of this video here. Maybe what you could do is, since we're talking about idea sex here, we've been talking a lot about sex in this live, but let's do this. What I would do is I would go like this. I would do this, and then Andrew Huberman routine me. Let's see if this works. Probably not. Oh, it worked. So what would happen if we took these 2 videos right here and we made them have a baby, right? So hold on. We're missing a very important ingredient. So let's go to view count. So what would happen? Oh, there's a baby right there. What would happen if we took these 2 videos and then this happened right here, right? So these 2 videos are going to be connected by whatever's going on here. They're having a baby. They're making it happen. What would happen is that you would create a video like this. You would say something like morning routine yoga for normal people, right? So what you're doing is you are taking these 2 ideas and you're mixing them together. Most people that watch Yoga with Adrian are probably pretty flexible, but maybe people who watch her are not flexible. So maybe you want to take some inspiration from this video and say like how you made it work for you. So imagine if you I made a Yoga with Adrian's morning routine work for me, right? So you could literally mix these 2 together, and that is a great way to stand out in a crowded niche. This girl right here proves it. This video was being done by everyone, and we discovered her video in Dent Makers like months ago. It might have been a year ago now that we discovered her video before it came up. So all you OG Dent Makers probably remember when we discovered her video, and now it has 1 million views. I think at the time we discovered it, it had 200,000 views or less. So she was able to stand out in a crowded niche by making this happen right here, by stretching her legs with a bar or a barbell or something. I don't know what's going on here. That is exactly what I would start doing, is I would start mixing together 2 viral ideas and making them work together. I want to use clips from movies to show certain personality types on some of my videos. Are there any clear-cut rules? There are no clear-cut rules. Like, I think for the most part, you're safe. Let's say I use 30 seconds, which is the maximum. That's my personal rule, right? My personal rule would be I would never use more than 30 seconds at a time without saying something. So let's say you use 30 seconds. I would just make sure that after the 30 seconds, you're responding for 2 minutes or, 3 minutes, right? You want to make it as obvious as possible that you are using the content as an example. Of course, we have charisma on command, right? So charisma on command basically does what you're talking about, right? I would try to see how long they use, how much time they use before they react to it, right? But I bet it's under 30 seconds. So they probably show 30 seconds and then react to it for 2 or 3 minutes. That's what I would stick to. Now, you still might get strikes. I guess the good news about strikes nowadays is it won't take down your channel. It might remove the monetization, but that's it. Do you know any good sites other than the main sites like Pexels for B-rolls? I just find I'm running out of footage and finding it harder to find specific footage for videos. Nowadays, I like to create my own B-roll, even though, I don't know, April's been begging me to create B-roll. I've been really bad at it lately, but I think creating your own is a good idea because it's pretty easy. But on top of that, I like that site. Storyblocks is the one that I use. I think Storyblocks is pretty good. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. You'll get tons of views, right? But this is how I would do it right here. I would make sure that you're using like 30 seconds, maybe. The other thing you can get away with is switching scene. So if you want to use more than 30 seconds, like as long as you're using a completely different movie or something, but still making the same point, you can probably get away with it. Like Paula says here, you can also mix B-roll. I think Paula was responding to Janet, but David, you could also put some B-roll over it real quick, then take it off. And I think there are ways that you could mix it up like that just so that you're not using too much of it, and you'll be fine. But again, there's still a risk. For all of you that want to react to things, there's always, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, there's always a risk that someone will claim your video or whatever, but it's like part of the game. I think as long as you don't monetize it, you're pretty much fine nowadays. Also, I think YouTube even has the system now where you can cut the part of the video out that is being claimed in the first place. So it's still not perfect. YouTube is getting better with the whole copyright thing. Someone asked me a question about this, that they were basically asking about testing for a platform, right? And so I did want to answer that today. Let's say we have a bunch of videos that are all 10 tips for traveling to Mexico. These are a bunch of interviews, right? That I did that I could have done with someone else. If you're sharing to another platform, let's say the green one here is Instagram, you can share the exact same video to Instagram, of course. I think the question that someone was asking me was about testing the hook. So they were asking about testing of hooks, right? And so what I like to do is I like to create different hooks. Like maybe I will have hook A, and maybe this is a better way to do it. Let's do it over here. So maybe I have hook A, then I'll have hook B right here. I'll have hook C as well. And so I like to batch record all my videos. So what I like to do is I will record the hooks all at the same time. So I'll record the hook, I'll pause, I'll record the next hook, I'll pause, I'll record the next hook, I'll pause. For the most part, the meat of my content is exactly the same. So the body or the main portion of the content never changes. Then I will record 2 calls to action, right? So I'll have this and I'll have another call to action down here. I'll record like 3 hooks. I'll record the body, then I'll record 2 calls to action. Then I will edit all of these together, right? I'll edit A with this, with body and call to action 1. I'll edit A with body, with call to action 2, and so on and so forth. So this becomes a bunch of pieces of content because I'm mixing up the hooks and the calls to action. So this is a great thing for testing, for posting on different platforms. But what the person was asking was, do you post the same hooks to the same platform? How do you know which hook works on which platform, and so on and so forth? But the whole point of this is that what happens is you're posting on Insta, you're posting on YouTube, you're posting on Facebook, and what might happen is that version 1 takes off on Instagram, but maybe this entire short as an idea doesn't take off on any other platform. And so what I like to do, I call this content fishing. We actually are going to have a whole entire course on it in the bundle. What I like to do is test all the hooks everywhere. If you go to my TikTok, I actually have the same TikTok posted right next to each other. It's the one about Chipotle on my Chris Rec TikTok. They're both exactly the same. They're just edited differently. So I am not afraid of posting one after the other, the same exact TikTok or the same exact short. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But what you will find is that certain combinations of like hooks will work better on different platforms. Or what might happen is that a certain type of short or piece of content might only work on Instagram, or maybe it only works on YouTube. So I'm always wanting to test, right? But the whole point of this is that if this takes off on Instagram, I'm then going to create like 20 versions of this using pretty much the same hook on the same platform. So what I'm doing is I'm basically fishing for viral content or for content that will take off. And then once it does take off on a platform, I double down on it. So I hope that makes sense. Probably not, but that's why I do that. I would like to create videos about neuroscience, but I am not a neuroscientist. How can I gain credibility in the field? Should I just create content by repeating what's out there in my own words? Yes. What I would start doing is I would start, like, there are tons of podcasts about it, right? If I search this right here, we're going to get a ton of podcasts with millions of views, right? So number one, leading neuroscientists. So these all 15 million views, 1.9 million views, right? You could try to interview her and also Andrew Huberman. What you could also do is you could do what I did and just say, so-and-so taught me, like, whatever her name is, I can never remember, Tara, what Dr. Tara taught me on this podcast. And then you just share whatever she taught you. And then you also share your opinion. That's what I would do. Like, I would say what I learned. Yeah, exactly what April says. What I learned from the #1 neuroscientist about brain health, or what I learned from the #1 about stress. What I would actually do is I would go to this podcast. I would come in here and I would tell Ryan Reynolds to be quiet so that I can teach here, Ryan. And I would come down here. I would look for the most viewed or most replayed section. And here she's asking why we're addicted to stress. I would then create a short that said what I learned from the top #1 neuroscientist about reducing stress. And then I would share what she says. I wouldn't know, of course, I would make it your own, but I would also use it on myself. So that we talk all about having an experience. So whatever she says, I would go out and test it. Because then you can say, I tested this trick by Tara Swart, and you can share what you learned. And that will get you so many views, right? And so I think that's a great short strategy. It's also great for long videos as well. You can say, I tested Tara Swart anti-stress strategy for 30 days, and here's what happened. You either at the end of the 30 days, you have less stress, or at the end of 30 days, you look like a neurotic mess. But the beautiful thing about this is you don't have to be successful with the test, because both things are a story, right? So people don't care if the story is positive, negative, if there's a positive outcome or a negative outcome, but they will stay for a story. And that's how I would structure it. Remember, for all you people, that what's important with a story is this right here. So when you're putting together a video, I like to make sure that I have 2 little payoffs and then 1 really big payoff, right? And so that's how I would structure it. Is I would go in, I would say, this is what I learned. Oh, this was your experience. What's the first payoff? Then this is what I learned. Here's a second payoff, and then 1 really big payoff at the end. I like to look at videos as a coloring book, right? So no one goes out and buys a coloring book that's already colored in. They buy a coloring book and they color it in themselves. So I like to treat my audience like they are smart. And what you want to do is you want to provide enough information on what they should do here, but without actually exactly telling them what to do. You want to provide, a great way to build tension is to, like, you're telling people what to do without saying exactly what to do, and you're allowing their mind to jump to conclusions on their own, right? And so you want to let them color in the coloring book that is your video. Thank you for watching this video. Again, if you want to get calls like this every single week, then make sure to check out the bundle down below. If you join the bundle now in the beta, you get access to weekly calls forever for the price of the bundle. If not, it'll be a much higher price in the future, but also we're going to be publishing calls just like this in the future.